So, friends, welcome back to Hobby Vomit. It's me, Matt, and today I want to do something a little bit different. I wanted to have a discussion about some really expectations about reading. That's kind of the point of this video, and how our expectations are sometimes not met. And so, yeah, really, this video is probably going to be called something like the most disappointing reads since becoming a fantasy reader, something along those lines. And that's really what we're going to discuss, some books that didn't live up to the hype for me. Now, that's not to say these are bad books. As you'll see, some of these have pretty good ratings. You know, as you can probably see on the screen right now, Way of Kings, I've got a 3.75 all the way up to a 4. But really, these are all books that were hyped so much as either on BookTube or Book Talk or whatever. They're just like BookTube darlings that never get any flack. They're just perfect in every regard to most people. And so I read them because when you're new to the space, you're going to read what other people suggest. And so I went into these books expecting 5 out of 5s. So that's simply what this book is, or what this video is books that I read expecting to be 5 out of 5s that are less than that. You know, it's got to be somewhat significant less. I think most of these are going to be 3 point somethings that I expected to be 5s. So, yeah, humor me. You will probably disagree with some of my takes. If you do, let me know. That's okay. This is my taste. So, yeah, let's start off with the big one, Brandon Sanderson as a whole. I've read, I think, 5 books by Brandon Sanderson now, maybe more. I think 5. So I've read the entire Mistborn trilogy. I've read The Way of Kings here, and then I've read The Emperor's Soul, I believe is the name of it. And so, yeah, Brandon Sanderson, you know him. Everyone knows him. He's the greatest fantasy writer of our generation, blah, 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 blah. I've not had bad experiences with Brandon, but I've not had great either. He's a very middle of the road author for me. But I am very thankful to Brandon Sanderson and Jonesy, if you've seen him on the channel. He's the one that really got me to start reading because we did a buddy read of the Mistborn trilogy. And I'd only heard good things, really wanted to read it. The first Mistborn, The Final Empire, I really liked. I think I gave that a 4.0. But I had a couple of little problems with his writing style. And unfortunately, 2 and 3, those just got worse. That problem just got worse and worse and worse for me, which is just, I never felt like I was trusted as the reader. He just needed to over-explain things again and again and again and again. And I really think Brandon's writing, I mean, we're looking at Way of Kings here, right? It's 1,000 pages. This book could have been 600 pages, and it would have been so much better for it, I think. I know some people completely disagree with that. They love it. But for me, I felt like Brandon was always watching over me, being like, do you get it? Do you get that? I don't think you get it. I'm going to tell you again because I don't think you get it, you dumb. I'm going to tell you again. And I'm just like, I get it, Brandon. I get it. Like Mistborn in book 3, you don't need to explain to me how the metals work or like what a coin shot does. Just call it a coin shot and I will understand because I've read, you know, whatever it is at that point, 1,800 pages worth of this world. So I get it. And that just really frustrated me to where I couldn't enjoy the books anymore. So, and then you couple that with, I think Brandon's character work is mid at best. I found Vin to be pretty unlikable throughout the entire trilogy. Kaladin, I didn't think, I know he is beloved. I didn't particularly like Kaladin or his arc. It just felt to me like almost like a Mulan montage, but he was like, but instead of it being quick, we're going to make it 1,000 pages. And the depression felt very fake to me. But just to me, I know everyone deals with it in their own ways. It didn't mirror my experiences with mental health issues at all. But again, that's not discrediting that it doesn't, some people don't feel exactly like that. Just to me, it felt like Brandon doesn't get it and he wrote it trying to get it. So yeah, didn't really love Kaladin and most of the characters in Way of Kings. I think here's Brandon's strength for me. Brandon Sanderson is an incredible world builder, an incredible magic system creator, and an incredible storyteller, a plotter. He's so good at that. He has a thing named after him where the end of the book explodes, called the Sanderlanche. And do I think that is a worthy title? Yeah, I do, because that's exactly what happens. But I think a lot of people forget is they leave on such a high that last 10% of the book. So in the Way of Kings, the last like 100 pages of 1,000 are explosive. They're huge, and to the last page, and you close, and you're like, oh my gosh, what a ride! You're on this high, and you kind of forgive the first 900 pages for being a slog, a true slog, and that's just how I feel about all of Brandon's work. To me, they really could be cleaned up and tightened up. And if he trusted his reader a lot more, I'd probably really like Brandon Sanderson, because, again, the stories he tells are great. I love the stories. I just don't think he's there with character work. And then I just think he desperately needs an editor. I know he's got one, but an editor that is not afraid to tell him you need to tighten this up. There's a reason why books don't come out. And this is the shortest, I believe, at 1,000 pages. I think Wind of Truth just came out. It was like 1,500 pages or whatever. And he refused to cut any more of that. And I think we finally reached that point where a lot of even fans are like, all right, Brandon, take a step back. Let's trim it up a little bit. Let's tighten it up. So, that's my experience with Brandon. I will say, The Final Empire was my favorite of the 5 I've read, maybe tied with The Emperor's Soul. I remember really liking The Emperor's Soul. I didn't really care for... I think The Way of Kings and Well of Ascension are probably at a 3.75. And then Hero of Ages was like a 3.25, 3.5 for me. I think the ending is great. I think the story is great. But I also felt like 3 was the biggest slog of them all. So that's Brandon Sanderson. We're kicking it off with the most controversial take of them all. But let's move on to another hot take. You're going to watch me type it in. Project Hail Mary. Project Hail Mary. The most beloved sci-fi book out there right now. And, I went into this not having read much sci-fi, but expecting to absolutely love it. I had seen The Martian in theaters, and I remember liking it. Not loving it, but liking it. I thought it was good. And then, so then I started this, and this starts off really cool, right? You can kind of see the description down here. Yeah, this guy wakes up, and he can't remember why he's there, and he starts to try and solve the puzzle of who he is, really. And all that's intriguing, except for the main character is the most insufferable main character I've ever read. I hated him. He's like a crypto Reddit bro that's just thinks he's the coolest dude in the world. And it's like he's lost his memories of who he is, except for that humor. He's still got that haha MCU humor. And I just couldn't stand it. I could not stand him. So you couple that with, this is, I guess, my first introduction into hard sci-fi, which I think that's what it's called, hard sci-fi, where, right, the main character needs to solve a problem of, like, why is the gravity changing this way? And instead of the author just saying, well, right, this guy is a genius. He understands the science of it, and just he figures it out. And I'm like, cool. I can suspend my belief I can believe that this genius in this field of science understands how to solve this problem. But instead of doing that, he takes us to a 2 or 3 page scientific explanation of every problem with math and deep science. And I just don't care. I don't care. I believe that you can solve it. I get it. I trust that. You don't need to, like, I don't know. It just felt like I was reading a textbook for a third of this book. So I didn't really love that. Didn't love the main character. But, as you can see, I still gave it a 3.5. So why? Well, there's that moment in there's a very significant event that happens in the middle of this book that kind of carries on throughout to the end. And oh my gosh, did that save this book for me? It saved it so much because it kind of took all of those problems out a little bit or remedied them a little bit. And I think the ending is really good. I love the story of this. So yeah, it still ended at a 3.5, but I just couldn't stand the main character. And I've heard that Andy Weir's like The Martian, and from what I remember, Matt Damon is very similar in character to this, and it's just a little insufferable for me. I just don't want to read whole books about it. And then this is the book that made me realize I don't like that textbook sci-fi. I don't want to read books to be taught math and science. But I think it's cool, and I know there's an audience for that. And I think this just was the one that made me realize, okay, that's the side of sci-fi I'm not so interested in. So 3.5 for me. All right, let's go to another BookTube darling. I actually just finished this book last night. Oh, and I should say, I'll let you know if there's going to be a review for these books on my channel or not. Brandon Sanderson, that was before I started the channel. Project Hail Mary before I started the channel. Although I will say, if you're interested in Ian's thoughts on Mistborn, his are pretty similar to mine. He has a Mistborn dedicated review for the Final Empire, just the first book. I will be putting up a review for this book that I'm talking about here. This is Between Two Fires by Christopher Buehlman. So, Between Two Fires, a BookTube and Reddit darling that if you say anything critical about it, you will be shamed publicly. And so this is not my first Buehlman book. I read Black Tongue Thief and really liked it. I think I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. Really, my biggest gripe with Black Tongue Thief is that the character work wasn't quite there. It was pretty good, but I wanted it to be great because the rest of it's so good. And that's exactly the problem I had with this book as well. Except for this was to a much higher degree. This is, I think, about 10 years prior he wrote Between Two Fires. So I think he's grown a lot as a writer into Black Tongue Thief. But the character work in this book is basically non-existent. I've never seen characters exist just to serve the plot more. Except for Buehlman also does this thing where he does a tell and not show, which I don't think works for the characters in this book, because these two characters are traveling across the country or Europe, and they're supposed to be bonding, but the entire time there's almost no scenes with the two of them together. They're always separated, and then it's just at some point it's just like, no, they've bonded, and Buehlman tells us they've bonded, and I'm just like, they did? When? Like, when did they even have time? They have no personalities at all. I don't know. I really struggled with that. But what are the pros of this book? Oh my gosh, the world building and just the setting. I've never really read anything like it. The medieval horror, dark fantasy was so cool. Every chapter was just like, that was cool. That was cool. That was cool. That was cool. It's very episodic, which ended up becoming a problem for me because there was no character work to go along with it. So it really just felt like it. I was talking to my buddy about it because we were doing a buddy read for this, and the best way I can describe it is this reads like a dark fantasy version of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where you're just getting these scenes that aren't really connected, but they are kind of connected. And once you leave that scene, you never see that scene again. And that's exactly how this book is. You get these cool scenes, but there's no lasting impact on our characters or their mission or anything. It's just like they go through it, and then as soon as they walk out of that town, it's to be forgotten forever. And I just grew to not like that because, right, if there was character work to go along with it and they grew in those moments, then I would be okay with it. But there was none of that. It just was like a cool. That was cool. And then by the time we finally do get some actual plot, it was like 80% in, and I just was mentally checked out at that point. I didn't care about the characters at all. Although there is one character I I did like a lot. I'm not going to talk about spoilers in this reviews, but there was one character I liked, and almost like the side characters that just show up here and there were better than our main characters, because our main characters were just like empty husks of humans that were existed just so there was a story. But yeah, by the time we got to actual plot, it was so deep in. I only had 2 hours left of the book, and I just didn't care anymore. So I felt myself just pushing to finish because I just wanted to be done. But yeah, I still gave it a 3.5 because I love Buellman's writing style. It's the most vivid, unique horror, dark fantasy I've read. Every scene is memorable because of that. I think he's great at that, but he does struggle a little bit with his characterization, which has improved in Black Tongue Thief. It's still not quite there, but I think he's improving, which is great. That's a great sign that I love to see an author grow. And so, yeah, Between Two Fires, it could have been perfect if there were actual characters that I cared about or saw some arc or any personality at all without Buellman just telling me, no, it's there. It's there. Trust me. So that's Between Two Fires. Okay, next. Here we go. Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. Another darling. Another 3.5 from me. This started out so promising to me, and it's been a minute since I read this, but kind of similar to Buellman. I think the story and the plot, it's a breakneck pace. This is a page turner. It's so easy to read, very consumable, and a really interesting story with the character work is where I'm just like, I'd never bought into these characters at all. You're telling me there's this genius man. He's an actual genius making the dumbest decisions I've ever seen, like that nobody would make. He only makes these dumb decisions so that the plot can move forward. And I hated it. I hated that part. I didn't hate the book. I still gave it a 3.5. But it could have been so good just if the characters made realistic decisions, and I just found that he didn't, the main guy, and so that really I struggled with that. Jason here, yeah, a genius that only made exclusively non-genius decisions throughout this book. I just don't, yeah, it just bothered me a bit, but the plot was good. It was pretty breakneck pace. I don't particularly remember loving the resolution. It's been a minute since I read it. But yeah, I remember the ending not feeling very satisfying either. So, Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I would read, I guess I should say whether I'd read more of said author. Brandon Sanderson, I do want to give him another shot with like a standalone book that people are like, oh yeah, it's like Brandon, but it's not that much like Brandon Sanderson. I love Princess Bride. I know that's similar to that. So I would like to give him maybe one more chance with a standalone. But I'm definitely not continuing Stormlight, and I'm not going to read the second era of Mistborn, and I'm not interested in Skyward. So really, yeah, it's just going to come down to I think I might try one of his standalone books. Andy Weir, I'm not interested in reading any more Andy Weir because I think he's going to lean too hard into that hard science, and I've heard a lot of his main characters are very similar, and those are the two biggest problems I have with that book. So no more Andy Weir. Christopher Buellman, absolutely will be reading more Christopher Buellman. I loved The Black Tongue Thief. I really want to read The Daughter's War, and because it seemed like he has really improved as a writer, and those problems I had, he seems to have remedied in his later work. So I'm excited to read more of Christopher Buellman. Blake Crouch, I think I would. If I'm just wanting something easy breezy, filler, I don't know, a palate cleanser, I think I would. I've heard Recursion's good. And I love the pacing of this book. It really was just like a popcorn page turner. So I think I would try some more Blake Crouch. All right, here comes another big controversial take. Yeah, Dungeon Crawler Carl. It doesn't have my review here. It might be because I did a different version of the book. I gave this book a 3.5 as well. So as you see, a lot of these, I don't hate them by any means. I still think they're good. 3.5 is solid. I just expected these to be 5s based off what I had seen out there on Reddit and Goodreads and BookTube and so on and so forth. I never see these books criticized at all. And so I just wanted to, maybe there's someone else like me that is like confused, or it's just not for them and they have more similar taste to me, and you're not alone. All right, Dungeon Crawler Carl. This one, yeah, this one was interesting because this is my first and only lit RPG or progressive RPG. I don't remember what they're called. I think it's lit RPG. And I listened to it on audiobook, which is how everyone's like, just don't even read it. You have to do the audiobook. And I struggle with audiobooks, but I got to say, Jeff Hayes is incredible. This is probably the single best audiobook performance I've listened to. Although Stephen Pacey for Joe Abercrombie books is right up there. This is just so many more different, like, crazy character voices that, it just was wild. And so I did like the book for the most part. I think what I don't like about this book are those lit RPG elements. We'd have these cool action scenes, and then it would slow to a crawl. A crawl. Just to talk about stats and gear, and I just don't care about that stuff. I play video games, and if I want to, grind out stats and stuff like that, I can do that in a video game. I don't want to read about gear and stats. Just tell me he picks up the toe ring, and then when he uses it, tell me what it does briefly without going into, like, it raises his charisma by 0.25. 0.25 is the threshold for the next thing. I'm just like, I don't care. I don't care about the math and the numbers. I just don't. It just, every time, the momentum just screeched to a halt to do these loot boxes or whatever. And I really struggled with the pacing in this book because so much of it's so good. I like Carl. Princess Donut's great. All the bosses are great. Very funny. The humor works mostly for me. I could see why, if you read this and you don't like the humor, boom, you're done. You're out. If you don't like the humor in this book, it's not something you can overlook, I don't think. So I just thought it was fine. This is not a 5-star book for me. 5 stars is a perfect book for me. This is not a perfect book. I think there's a lot of problems with this book that I've heard are remedied moving forward. So with that, will I be reading more Dungeon Crawler Carl? Yes, I will. That's a locked-in yes. Bree, my partner, and I are going to read the next one at some point. Right now, we just have a lot more things we want to read more. So we'll eventually get to it, but I'm not sure when. But it is a definite continue. We listen to the audiobook. Just, if anything, I think Jeff Hayes, I want to hear him perform more because he's so good that I'm willing to, if 3.5 is the worst of the worst, then I'm here for it. I just don't know if Dungeon Crawler Carl will ever become. I think it was in like the top 20 of all series of all time on the Reddit poll, and after just one book, I don't understand that, but I'm hoping that I will after a few more. So that's Dungeon Crawler Carl. All right, let's move on to Dogs of War by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is the only Adrian Tchaikovsky I've ever read. I did this as part of the Talking Story book club when I first signed up for their Patreon, and I was really interested in reading some Tchaikovsky because I hear his name all the time on BookTube and stuff, and I liked it. You're gonna hear me that's the theme of this video. I liked it, but yeah, 3.5 out of 5. This was a really interesting book about the future of AI, really, and AI used in warfare, which I find really interesting and intriguing. But like a lot of the other books, I don't love the character work in this book. A lot of it, there's not a ton of it really. Which, kind of makes sense with robots. Like, they're not really supposed to have deep personalities, and that's fine. But I still crave that. It's hard for me to read an entire book without connecting to any characters, and I didn't find myself connecting to any of the characters in this book. But I really like Tchaikovsky's writing style. His prose is excellent, and I can't wait to give him more of a shot just somewhere else. I'm not going to read the next book in this series, the second Dogs of War. I think it's called like Bearhead or something like that. People seem to like it even less, and if they like it less, then I'm not interested in that. So I won't be continuing that. But I think I want to try Children of Time or something because I do really like his writing style, and I'm hoping I can find a series of his where the character work is a little stronger. So that's Dogs of War. All right, I got 2 more for you. This one, whoops, Incidents Around the House by Josh Mallerman. Honestly, I feel like a 3.25 here is generous. Bree and I read this. We listened to the audiobook because this was another audiobook that people highly recommended. And yeah, I did not like this book very much at all. There's some really great horror elements to it, some great horror visuals, but it's told from the point of view of an 8-year-old. And it's narrated by an 8-year-old. And I think the 8-year-old did a great job with her audio narration. Or I guess I don't know how old the audiobook narrator was, but it sounded like they got, well, maybe they didn't get a young girl. I can't remember. But the performances were great. I think the audiobook performance was very good. But Josh Mallerman cannot write an 8-year-old to save his life. Oh my gosh, it hurt to read. That he just... When I think of authors who can write a child's voice very well, Stephen King, and maybe I've been spoiled by Stephen King being able to write kids so well that when I got to this, it just felt like a 40-year-old man writing an 8-year-old girl. You could just tell, and that really hurt it when the whole book is from there. And then there's a lot of decisions that get made by some of the characters in this book that make no sense just so it can be scary. And yeah, I had a lot of problems with that. But it was still a fun ride. I was glad when it was over. I didn't have any interest in it being any longer. Had some fun reveals. The horror elements were really good. A really fun like creature in this book. So that kind of helped carry it, because not a lot of books are scary. But this one's got some really creepy visuals, and I thought it did well there. I don't know if I'm interested in reading any more Josh Mallerman. I know he did Bird Box. I don't know really what else he's done, but I would say right now off the cuff, no, not really interested in reading anymore. But I think, I guess I would, because I know that I'm assuming not all of his books are POV 8-year-old girl, and I think that was the biggest weakness. So if he's writing maybe adults or something, maybe he could do that a little bit better. So maybe I would try another one of his books. But yeah, that's Incidents Around the House. And finally, another darling, Stormfront by Jim Butcher. The first book of the Dresden Files series. This is actually my second read of this. I read this book back in college when I wasn't really into reading, but there was a board game out about the Dresden Files, and I watched somebody playing it on YouTube, and they were gushing about the series, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I do want to. This kind of sounds like a cool idea, like a wizard, living in Chicago. I didn't understand what urban fantasy was at that point, but urban fantasy, which I've now grown to realize I don't like that. I don't like urban fantasy. It's not my cup of tea. But this book in particular, I remember when I picked it back up now. I was like, I kind of remember being a little like grossed out by the main character, how he interacted with women, but maybe not. Maybe I just was in college. Like maybe I just am misremembering. Nope. I remembered pretty well, because Harry Dresden is a freaking creep. I can't stand it. And it doesn't even feel like it's just him. It feels like it's the author. Like every time he wrote a woman, he had to talk about her tits first. That's the first thing he has to do. Harry's got to look at her tits and describe them, or the curves of her. And it just felt so gross. And he was such an unlikable character because of that. I'm like, dude, grow up. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, that's just his character. He gets better. It's intentional. I don't buy it. I don't buy it's intentional. I certainly can believe that 10 books in or whatever, Jim Butcher's like, maybe I shouldn't write women like that anymore, and then writes it as part of Harry Dresden's character. I could get behind that, and it seems like it gets better, and that's great. Good job, Jim Butcher. But I do not think that it was intentional here. I think this was Jim Butcher's insert into this book. And yeah, it didn't work for me the first time. It did not work for me the second time. I don't love urban fantasy. There's some cool scenes in this book, but I hate the main character. The supporting characters I felt zero attachment to. There's just some cool scenes, and urban fantasy does feel unique in the sense of it's happening in an urban setting. But that's not enough to carry a book for me. And then this series is notorious for you just got to get to book 6 or whatever, 6 or 7 or something. And I'm just like, I'm not giving this series 6 books to get good. I'm just not doing it. I gave it 1. If book 2 were supposed to be incredible and we go from there, then I would give it a shot. I would. But it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be. Some people like 2 even less than 1. So I don't think urban fantasy is for me. I'm not interested in continuing my journey with Jim Butcher. Would I read other Jim Butcher? Yes, I would. And I do want to try the Codex Alera because it's more of just like an epic fantasy. It was later in his career. I'm hoping maybe around the same time where he realized that he doesn't have to write women that way. Please. Who knows? But I've heard good things, so I would try it because I like a lot of the other authors on here. I think he has very readable prose and a readable book with a good plot. He does a lot of things right. It's just he misses the mark on some important things for me, and so that's why it did not work so much. So that's my video. Yeah, I went through, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 books that I thought going in were going to be 5 out of 5s and ended up being, I think everything on here was a 3.25 to a 3.5. So still good enough that I finished the book, and I was happy to finish the book for the most part. Looking at you, Way of Kings. Whew, that's a long book. But yeah, I still have fond memories of reading these books. There's still a lot of good to pick out of these books. I don't know. I'm just confused as to why there's just no criticism out here on a lot of these books. They're just, if you disagree with them being 5 out of 5s, you're wrong, and we will come for you. So I want to put it out there that I think there's probably some other readers out there like me that I'm just like, I don't get it. I just don't get it. But yeah, I know this was maybe a bit of a negative video, but hopefully maybe you got something out of it. It was nice to be able to just talk about some of these books that I'm not going to do reviews for because all of these were before my my channel started, with the exception of Between Two Fires. But it's fun to criticize art because you also get to figure out what works for you and what doesn't. So these were the books that helped me to figure out what works for me and what doesn't, and some authors that maybe I like to see. It's fun to watch an author grow and through their journey, and like Christopher Buehlman, and yeah, it also goes to show, right, if you've read one of these books and didn't like it, there's a good chance that you could read some of the author's other works and still like it, because books are different. But I think that's all I've got to say, really. If you want to bring out the pitchforks, I say bring them out. Let's do it. I want to hear why I'm wrong and why why I'm wrong. But would love to discuss with you if you have different thoughts. But yeah, that's it. I'm Matt. Thanks for joining me here today on Hobby Vomit, and we will catch you for the next one. Goodbye.